Hello, I am Kelly, and this is Book and Paper Arts. And today I'm going to talk about ways to work in your messy art journal. It can also work for a junk journal or any kind of a blank book or notebook that you have. But I'm focusing on how to create on messy pages because I actually make these books and sell them in my online shop. And they are popular, but something that I hear a lot is, well, that's pretty, but how am I supposed to make a journal page in here that expresses what I'm thinking? Because there's already a lot going on. And I thought that I would just talk about that. This video is in two parts, basically. The first part is going to be about how to find images that work well with these messy pages, mixed media pages. I'm just going to run through a bunch of stuff. After that, the second part of the video is going to be how to use those images and other mixed media techniques such as stenciling and work with gesso to pull your pages together. So if you already know where to find images, you can skip ahead and we'll see you there. But if you'd like to know more about ways to find stuff, join me. The first thing I want to talk about is a comment. One of the most common comments that I get in the feedback here under the videos is, well, that's all fine and well. You have a lot of stuff, but where I live, it's hard to find it. I just don't think that's true because while it's true, I do live in a country now, in the UK, where I have access to a lot of old paper. I've also lived in rural Mississippi and rural Tennessee, and I always found some beautiful stuff to work with. Now, the key word here is look, to look and to see. Because if this is going to be, you can find this, but you're going to have to dedicate it yourself to it as a hobby. You need to go to thrift stores, charity shops, car boot sales, flea markets, rummage sales, church sales, used library book sales. You get the idea. And I bet probably most of you do that already. But you can't just go into a thrift store and buy some Tupperware and then walk out and say, darn, I never find the good stuff. You gotta dedicate yourself. So go to the bookshelf and start looking. Look at the coffee table books. Those are the big shiny ones on the bottom shelf. And again, even if you were in some far-flung place, if you look a couple of times a week, every week, you're going to start seeing, well, start with gardening. Look for books on gardening because there you're going to find flowers and plants and often birds. So look for books on hiking, nature, gardening. Look for books on art history and history in general, because a lot of times if you're looking at a book of old-timey kings, it's going to have pictures of their old-timey art, and you can cut that out. Look in the church and religion section, not for the preaching, which I'm not crazy about myself, but because, again, if you look often and keep going back, eventually you're probably going to find a book on sacred art or church architecture. And inside of that, you're going to find frescoes and murals and paintings and whatnot. So what you need to do, it's really simple, is just every time you're there, take the time to actively see what's on the shelves there. And I promise you, you're going to find at least one thing. Start cutting that one up, keep looking at the same time, and boy, before you know it, you're going to have quite a library of scraps. Why, yes, it is a lot of cutting. And there's just no way around that. what I do is if I'm watching telly or listening to a podcast, I'm cutting. I also have a folder of stuff to cut, and if I'm on the phone with my family or even on Skype, I'm cutting. So just work that into things that you're already doing. One last thing about using thrift stores and used bookstores and the like is don't forget to check and see if they have any stack of old calendars, magazines, greeting cards, and postcards and stuff like that, because you can rifle through those and find terrific images. But besides cutting up found stuff, let's look at some other ways to add things to your pages. This is something I printed. I don't use printed pieces in my altered books, but if I'm making a journal for myself for fun, if I see a picture of something beautiful and old, I'm going to grab it and print it. If you don't have a printer, you can put it on a stick, a little thumb drive, and take it to the office store and have it printed there. It doesn't cost much. Let's see. This is some old ribbon. It's just a little bit of a fragment here. Here's a little bit of leftover gauze, and I'm going to be using some of those. Okay. Stamps. These are great for filling up space and embellishing. If you don't have vintage stamps, they are really easy to come by. Go to eBay or Etsy and just look up vintage stamps lot, and you're going to find so many things for just a few dollars or a couple of pounds. You can even filter and look for vintage stamp birds or vintage stamp flowers, and it's really, you're going to get so many for not much money, and they're cool. This is a tea bag, a used tea bag, and I'll be gluing that down. Here is a store-bought tag, but I got it at Michael's in the dollar bin when I was visiting my family, so check out the cheap stuff. Such as, this is a paper napkin. I got this at my supermarket, my grocery store. So got 20 of them, and they were really cheap. And if you use old napkins, like pretty napkins like this, what you want to do is peel them and then peel them some more. They have actually 2 or 3, 4 layers, and you want to make sure that you get only the last thinnest one. And I'll show you how to use those in the next part of the video. Found words. Now, this came from my census thingy, junk mail really, reminding me to take the census. And this, again, train yourself to look at so-called junk mail and see what pops out at you word-wise. What you need to know. Well, once this goes in a journal, it's not going to be about the census. It's going to be about creative stuff, what you need to know. Okay, I got to admit this isn't French, but it came with some mail. Oui, je. It says, yes, I wish. So that's going to be cool. This came with somebody asking for money. It's time for change. I was just about to throw the whole envelope away, and then I saw it's time for change. That's going to look really good in one of my pages. So train like a creative athlete to look and see, actively see what you're looking at. And now I've come down to fragments of old art projects that either were experiments or were cut-offs of things that I used and then trimmed. In fact, all of these are in some of my YouTube videos. This is some tissue paper that I stamped with a rubber stamp and ink. This is where I was experimenting with mark making with coffee. And again, this was mark making with some ink. And I was going to use it in a fancy art journal page, and then this happened. So I would like to recommend that you keep scraps like this in some kind of folder. Now, I've made this one, but you can just use a store-bought manila folder or make one from some watercolor paper, whatever. If you carry your scraps, your book, and your glue stick with you all the time, if you are having coffee, or if you're waiting in the car for somebody, if you've got an appointment and you've got to sit in an office, you've got time to do a page or 2 or 3 if you've got your stuff with you. Now let's see how to make it. Before I start gluing in images, I want to lay down some background. I know it's already got a lot of background, but we're going to make it even messier, and it will come together, trust me. I'm going to start with some stencil work. I love stencils. You can get them very inexpensively and do so much with them. And I actually have a longer video just on using stencils in your art journal, and there's a link to that in the text below. So I'm just going to kind of start in the middle. This is some gesso that I've tinted with a tiny bit of yellow acrylic. And I love in my art journals, I love a kind of a torn, what I call a torn wallpaper look, or, peeling fresco. So I'm just going to make this not matchy-matchy, just pouncing around randomly. And even though this is messy, I do want my pages to hold together, so I'm going to add some on the other side as well. And now I'm going to let that dry. Here I'm going to use a different stencil. This is some arches, like church arches. And for this, I'm going to use, I've mixed together blue and green acrylic to kind of make a peacock. Very, very roughly mixed. It does not have to be acrylic. You could use a stamp pad or acrylic daubers. Just use what you've got. I'm going to use this cheap makeup sponge rather than a blending tool. And again, I'm not going for perfect coverage. That's not this video. But see how that's coming? And I'm just going to carry that across. Create mystery, texture, and some layer. Oops. Now I can either leave this the way it is, or I can work into it. That's the great thing about messy pages like this. Now I want to add a couple of more glue-in backgrounds. This is the napkin, the paper napkin, and as you can see, I peeled away another layer. So 3 layers, and now it's really thin. And it will go on translucent. It's really important when you glue down something this thin that you add your glue or your adhesive to the substrate, not this. It will tear and cursing will ensue. Trust me, I know. So add your glue to the surface and then put this on carefully, but don't worry about it because this is a messy book. I'm using a glue stick, but you can, of course, use PVA or Mod Podge or anything else. That did not really stick, so let's have another go there. And you can see that it's gone on like a tissue paper, very, very translucent. So you've got layers here. You can see what's underneath. And again, we can either leave this as a page or work into it. Here, there we go. This is a part of a tea bag, and they're very much the same sort of thing. Except you will be able to see, it will go translucent and you can see anything underneath. Now, one of the differences here is that tea bags are actually more robust than you think. So you can put your glue actually on the tea bag itself. Some people have asked me where I get big tea bags. You can either, if you're in America, you could probably get iced tea bags, which are bigger. I drink loose tea, so I get these online or in like a Whole Foodie store, and they're kind of a make-your-own tea bag. I use them a lot. So now we have. I'm going to trim that a little, but leave it kind of messy. But again, really, really shabby chic stuff going on here. And finally, I want to... This is from a project I did a couple of weeks ago on YouTube. And it's tissue paper with the rubber stamps of these bird nests. Again, you do not want to put the glue on here. It will make you unhappy. So I'm just going to take a pencil and kind of guesstimate where I want that to go. And add my glue. Yikes! There we go. And now that it's on the paper, it's nice and see-through, and you've got these birds' nests kind of floating out there. Now let's make some pages. I'm going to add a few tags throughout. And you can use a brad, of course, and I do. But in this case, I used a hole punch and just put a hole in the tag and a hole in the page. And I'm going to use some kind of distressed twine here. And, okay, so that's going to just be there, adding a couple of things, a little extra texture. And then you could also alter this if you wanted to, add something to the tag, and you can use it for journaling. Here is the page where we put down a little bit of stencil work with tinted gesso. And clearly, you can't really write on some pages, like the sheet music. So I want to use the really dramatic pages to make layouts. And I'm just going to use this glue stick. Again, please feel free to use PVA or whatever else you have. If you've seen my art journal process pages, you know that I spend a lot of time on layout. But in this small one, I'm just working a little more quickly and a little more free. It's so busy already that I don't have to worry if my narrative is perfect. Okay, maybe just a little bit. And I've got this icon that I'm going to add. I'm going to take her way over here so that there's plenty of space here for writing. And that can either be a journal entry or a quote or a word, whatever you like. This is another page where you've got a lot going on. Really too much to write into per se. So I have our found words from the junk mail that came today. I'm just going to put that there. And then I've got this little angel. And so it's going to go something like that. So in a way, I am making a journal entry just using found words. Oh, and there. This is from was from a children's storybook. Let him in. So that's going to look like that. That's in place now. And over here, again, really too fiddly for writing. So I had some scrap ribbon and I glued it down, just tacked it down on one side so it's still loosey on the other side. I've glued a little piece here for kind of a highlight. And so that's how that's going to look. Sometimes you can rig it so that you can work on the text. What I'm going to do here is one thing is I added a little bit of this ledger paper so I can already write or draw on that. Then I went round the whole thing with a water-soluble pencil. I'm going to take some gesso and I am going to activate the pencil so that it becomes kind of like an ink. And I'm going to draw that out into my surface. And that's going to do a couple of things. It's going to make it look cool, which we always want. And it's going to give you a little more surface for writing or drawing. When that dries, you'll now be able to write or draw over the gessoed areas. But it also makes it just kind of blend in cool. So now you have a page with the text, but you can work on it. Now, this page is a little bit not as pretty as I would like. So I'm going to cover it with this fragment of ledger paper. And I've just put glue on this page right before I turn the camera on. And now I have another page where I can draw and write, and it adds interest to the book. Let's make sure that's down there. And you can see that I am not cutting perfect shapes. It's going to overlap here, and you're going to see it on the other sides, and I like that. I like it a lot. Thank you. Let's look at another layout. Here's where we did the stencil work. And I've got this guy and this flower. I like this flower because it's beautiful. It was left over from another project. Not quite perfect enough for an altered book, but great for an art journal. Plus, it really pops against that busy, dark background. I have a little butterfly, again, not really going with another project. And then I have some more found words. And I'm going to put that down. Now, let's go through and add some mark making. This is some homemade walnut ink that I make, but you can also use watercolor or an acrylic wash, acrylic ink, whatever you got, use it. I'm going to take my Japanese teacup and make some coffee stains. And just dab them here and there. Yeah, why not? Let's see if we can walnut stain some gauze. Yes, you can. Wow, cool. Who knew? And I've also got, this is just a little makeup, a lid of some cream, lotion stuff, and it's going to make a different kind of, a smaller coffee ring. Okay, so just make stuff. Let's see. I'm gonna blot that a little. There we go. And I can also do that, and that'll make some more smudges. Over here, I want to add some drizzles. I'm going to take my pipette, and it's got acorn ink. Okay, so I'm just going to bring this across like this. And then I'm going to activate that with a little bit of just some water in this mister. And it's going to come, acorn ink is it has a kind of a charcoal color to it. And I think that really offsets this painting of this door that I have here. So we're just going to let that get nice and messy. And now a flip through. I do like to write in my journals. I didn't talk a lot about that here. That's up to you. So just, again, write your thoughts or feelings, or in this case, I like to make these into kind of a commonplace book. So I add poems and sayings that are meaningful to me. But I'm just showing you so that you see you can write into some of this mess. And you don't have to be intimidated by it. And that was a little bit of both. I softened this with a little bit of a watercolor pencil, going around it, activating it with gesso, and pulling it out into the page. But you can still see very clearly the map that's underneath. We have more pages for adding entries. I've written here some more ribbon, writing. And then I just had a fragment of some wings from an old dictionary. These were some dried flowers that I found in a vintage book that I bought. And I'm actually reading Dante for the first time in my entire life. And when I was flipping through another dictionary, I found this picture of him under D. And I thought that was kind of a sign. And so there he goes. I don't paint a lot, but I am fascinated by doors. And I found a beautiful picture of one. And I've just been working on that. And I think that would really be, there's a lot that I could write here about that. There's our paper napkin over sheet music. This is just some tissue paper. I'm not happy with how this marble paper bled and gave me all these cherry colors. So I have been going over those with gesso, trying to get them a little less bubblegummy. It's a tea bag, and I can draw over that now. And here is where we've worked over the sheet music with some stencil work and the layout. Still plenty of room here to work in a journal. And here's the found words. And another ribbony page. So that's how I've used the text to my advantage, rather than saying, oh no, I can't work on it. Clearly, I've got weeks and weeks to work on this. This is just kind of prepping it, getting ready. And I softened up the edges of that ledger fragment with the gesso. Now we can work on there. Added another tag. These are that I made into the book by adding onion skins before I boiled this book. So that's actually kind of an echo print. And this is one where I've already done quite a bit of writing with these guys. This was another found in a scrap in a book, and I've softened the edges with the gesso. I could probably do a little bit of sketching here now. Here's our nests. I'm just going to leave that like it is. And over here, another fragment left over from another project. And I can add some words down here. What you need to know on a map page. And here I've got a tag, and I've attached that with a brad. So there you go. I post on YouTube every Friday, so please, if you like art journals and altered books, subscribe to my channel. I also have an online newsletter with free vintage paper downloads and tutorials, giveaways, and the occasional pep talk. Please leave me a comment or question in the feedback, the comments below here. I love to compare notes. Until next Friday, get up and go make something.